Okay, this video is going to go, okay, I guess a deep dive, really slowly, explain, hopefully really in depth, handgun grip. I've talked about handgun grip a lot if you ever talked to me. If ever you were in a class, I have some videos on handgun grip, but I still see people at the range and they don't understand handgun grip, why it's important, what they could do. And I'm also going to try to get into little techniques and tricks into having a slightly better handgun grip. Okay, so just to start with, handgun grip is the most important fundamental in shooting. You might say, "Oh, but I have to aim in order to shoot correctly." The truth is, really don't have to aim so much. Even a new shooter within 15 feet, you can basically point the gun and shoot. There's no aiming. Just point, shoot, and you'll hit the target. You ready?
Yep.
As someone who gets a little bit better, you dry fire a lot, you get to 20, 30, 40 feet, you can basically just there's barely any aiming involved, if any. So handgun grip, it's the most important thing. It affects your aim, it improves your aim, right? Because your gun's not flopping all over, it's staying steady, and as long as you can point clear, you can point straight, you can also shoot straight, as long as you have a good handgun grip, it affects your recoil, so the gun's not flopping all over. If the gun flops every single time, my gun's empty. Every single time you press the trigger, it goes all the way up, and you can't shoot quickly, right? So you need to control that recoil. Also, your gun might jam. You might get a stovepipe if you don't have good recoil. If the gun flies up, the slide doesn't go back all the way, and it goes back all the way, but the casing won't eject clearly and cleanly. So then your gun might jam. So handgun grip super important. I'm going to try to clarify something that handgun grip, at least in my head, in my brain, it means two things, right? It means how you're actually gripping the gun, right? Do you have a good grip on the gun, like this? It also means your wrist and your arm. That's included, even though really handgun grip just means your two hands touching the gun, hugging the gun. Really, how I'm going to explain it, because it's all connected to controlling the recoil, it also is included in your elbows, your arm, and most importantly, your wrist. Or you're going to hear limp wristing. You don't tighten your wrist. You have a limp wrist. That's just connected to me. Connected to your grip. I'm going to try to explain what I think the best way for a beginner is to grip the gun. There are different ways. I'm going to try to touch on them briefly. I'm also going to explain why I think if you're first starting, you don't plan on being a Navy SEAL or in Delta Force, you just plan on training a little bit, why the grip I'm showing you and the techniques I'm showing you are the most effective and the easiest for beginners. Okay, so grip. You need a good grip in order to control recoil. Recoil is really important in order to shoot fast, and also in order to not jam your gun, not get a stovepipe. But mostly just in order to shoot fast. If every single time you shoot, the whole entire gun moves back, you can't shoot quickly and accurately. Okay, so the most important thing is your dominant hand. Your dominant hand goes over like this, right? There's the beaver tail. There should be no gap over here. There should be that little fold in your skin. Should look almost as if it's pushed up into the gun. That's 90% of the grip, right? Your dominant hand, your shooting hand should have a good grip on the gun. That's it. Really nothing. Where else should you put your three fingers? You put it on the grip of on the handle of the gun. Your trigger finger either goes up here when it's before you actually shoot, ready to shoot. Obviously, press the trigger. What people really don't get is the support hand. The support hand is really not. It's not as easy to actually get your hand on the gun when it's just with your support hand. So what are we doing? If I wanted to control recoil, it's the top part of the gun recoils. It recoils back. It flips up. Right? Well, really, the gun goes back and also it flips up. So if you want to control the muzzle flip, where would you put your hand? You put your hand right here in the front of the gun, right? So it can't go up. Right? Obviously, you can't do that. You can't put your hand on the top of the slide. But the point is, you want to put your hand as far up towards the front of the muzzle as possible. If the further up, the more control you have over the gun. So, and you'll feel this. If you don't believe me, you can just touch your own gun. Put your hand back here, and you'll see, okay, this is a decent grip. Put it all the way up here towards more of the front of the gun. And it depends how you're going to put this hand, depending on how big your hand is, what type of gun you have, how big the gun is. But the more you put it up, you'll see, as long as this part of the hand doesn't come completely off the gun over here, try to put it as far up as possible, okay? You can do that, as far up as possible. That's good. You have your dominant thumb. Don't put it down here, because then that dominant thumb will get in the way of your support hand. So get it out of the way, basically. You're just getting your thumb out of the way. It's not really doing much. Your dominant thumb, get it out of the way. And put your thumb, your support thumb, along this part of the gun. Your four fingers wrap it over here, over your other dominant, your three fingers over here. And that's all it is. That's what a good grip is. That's at least where you're touching it. You can do this and still have a bad grip. In that video, you see the person who's shooting has a decent grip. He's a nice guy, I know him. He has a decent grip, and it looks kind of like this, but as soon as he starts shooting, his finger and his hand starts to come off the gun, and then he's almost shooting basically with one hand. That's not good. So if you're just touching the gun, again, it affects what type of gun, if you have a skinny gun, if you have what size your hand is, but people's hand start to fall, your support hand starts to kind of lose grip and come off the gun. So what do? So take your hand and you twist it into the gun. You twist it in like this. Here, you're just touching it and then you're twisting in. Here, like this. It's almost as you're not actually trying to move the gun over, but as if you're trying to push the gun over. Right? You're not actually going to push the gun over because your dominant hand is going to push it back. And when you kind of get that torque, you kind of push it in, that makes it so your hand, your thumb, and your support hand doesn't slip off the gun. Right? That will give most of the actual grip in the gun will be you putting your hand, your support hand, twisting into the gun. So the twist. Okay. The other thing, okay, so that if you have it twisted, you put your hand like this, you have a good grip, it's amazing. Your hand's probably not going to slide too much. If it does, it shouldn't slide too much if you do that. If you twist it in, you have a good grip, everything looks solid. I always say with your support hand, just squeeze the gun as much as possible. People say, how hard should I squeeze? Just squeeze, it doesn't really matter. You can squeeze as hard as you want. Just squeeze as hard as you can with your support hand. With your dominant hand, they say it affects your trigger, which really don't care that much if you're kind of close, but it'll affect your trigger pull if you squeeze too much. So don't squeeze too much, just have a firm grip with your support hand, with your dominant hand, with your shooting hand, and then with your support hand, just squeeze it as hard as you can and twist into the gun. Okay, so even if you do all that, you have this whole twist in, you have a good grip, you can still have a lot of recoil in your gun, and you can still have a lot of flip. How? Because you have, we said before, if you limp wrist, if your wrist is limp. So there's a few ways to control having a limp wrist or tightening up your wrist. You could just, if you can get it, just tense your muscles. Just tense your wrist muscles, right? If you can focus on that. And people, if you just focus on it enough, you practice enough, you can just tighten your wrist just by tightening them. There's no really magical way to do it. You just kind of tighten it. What I always say is push with your dominant hand and pull back with your support hand. So as you're twisting with your support hand, you do this, not like this whole push and pull with your whole entire arm. Just with your hands, kind of do this little push forward and then pull back a little bit. And you're also twisting in. That tightens up your wrist. Again, do you have to do that push and pull? No. You can tighten your wrist in other ways. But this is the most simple way. Just to push and pull, that tightens up your wrist. And for most people, they don't know how to tighten their wrist because they don't really do it. It's not something they naturally do. So the push a little bit with your hand and pull back with your support hand like this, that tightens out your wrist. Okay, so that controls muzzle flip. Other things with your stance, I like locking out your arms completely. Some people do it, they don't, they kind of lock out their elbows like this. It's fine, there's different ways to do it. I always say lock out your arms like this because it's the most simple way to do it. If you're actually under fire, just go. It's a lot simpler than going, right, practicing that. And we're talking about people that don't practice all the time. So just to get in this, especially when you're under fire, I just did the twist in and just getting my arms out, locking out my elbows so there's not a lot of bend in my elbow when it shoots. My shoulders are locked out. Right, that will control everything. So it starts from the arms to the shoulder. From the shoulder to the elbows, having your wrist locked out. Again, there's different ways to do it, but I say the most simple way to do it, at least for beginners who don't practice a lot, not like me, is just to do that little push with your hand, and then pull back with your support hand, and then have the twist in with this hand. You'll have a super amazing recoil control, and that's how you have a good grip, including grip and everything. In addition, if you really want to control recoil, also lean forward. You can lean forward. I'm not showing my legs. You lean forward just from your waist. You can also put your dominant, your like right, if you're righty, your dominant leg back. It doesn't really matter. Just lean forward a little bit, and that will also control the recoil. Okay, hopefully that clears up some things. Hopefully you get a small little technique. Some people will tell you, oh, the push and pull is some old method. It's not an old method. I mean, it is an old method, and some people don't use it. Okay, it's fine. You don't have to use the push and pull. The push and pull is just a really easy way to lock out your wrists, which is you need to lock out your wrists in order to shoot fast. So that's what it is. I like it because it's simple. I teach to people because it's simple to remember. It's simple to get the muscle memory in order to lock out your wrist fast. Other people, they have a really good grip. They look really good, but it takes them a while to figure out how to lock their wrist. Push and pull. My wrist will lock out. People can understand that pretty simply. Okay, hopefully you got something from that. If you did, I'm happy.